Good afternoon. Oh, thank you. I love that. Hello and welcome. My name is Karen Mahar, and I am the director of the Ocean City Free Public Library, for those of you who do not know me. And on behalf of the library and OC Reads, I'd like to thank all of you for being here with us today for our OC Reads Author Talk with Lynda Rutledge, author of our 2025 selection, West with Giraffes. I'd also like to thank our wonderful OC Reads committee for their time and commitment during our selection process for this book. This year's book, West with Giraffes, invites the reader along on an incredible cross-country journey where we follow two giraffes and some truly unforgettable characters as they navigate hardship, prejudice, and challenges along the way. Through the eyes of young Woody Nickel, we venture across a country struggling through the Great Depression, and yet witness many small acts of kindness, courage, and compassion. It's a reminder that even in the hardest times, we can still hold on to a sense of wonder and push forward with a sense of purpose. We are proud to select West with Giraffes as our 2025 OC Reads book. And now I have the pleasure and am thrilled to introduce our visiting author today, Lynda Rutledge. Before she became a novelist, Lynda was a professional writer for over 25 years, working as a copywriter, restaurant and film reviewer, book collaborator, nonfiction author, travel writer, and freelance journalist. She petted baby rhinos, snorkeled with endangered sea turtles, hang glided off a small Swiss mountain, and dodged hurricanes to write articles for national and international publications such as the Chicago Tribune, Chicago Sun-Times, Poets and Writers, Houston Post, San Diego Union Tribune, and many more. Her travel photographs often appear with her work. She's also crafted book-length nonfiction for famous organizations such as Habitat for Humanity and the San Diego Zoo. Lynda holds an MFA in creative writing, a BA and MA in American literature, and has won awards and residencies. Her debut novel, Faith Bass Darling's Last Garage Sale, won the 2013 Writers League of Texas Novel of the Year and was adapted into a major French film. Her best-selling novel, West with Giraffes, was named the Texas Center for the Book's 2023 Great Read. Her new novel, Mockingbird Summer, a coming-of-age story in a 1964 tiny segregated town with a 2021 ending, was released on January 30th, 2024. We are so happy to have her here with us today in Ocean City. And I had the pleasure of having a little time with Lynda last night. And I don't know if we're going to be able to get her to come out of her shell. She and I are way too alike. We could have some fun. But please welcome our visiting author and help me in welcoming Lynda Rutledge.
Thank you. Hey, Steve, that is killing me. Can we, I don't know what we do. Can I come down here? Okay, let me do this. Can y'all just, well, let's find out whether you can see me. So, how many of y'all like giraffes? How many of y'all have met a giraffe in person? Oh, I hope you get to, because, oh my gosh, those things they're just amazing. They're just serene, you know, just, anyway. Everybody see me? All right. You know, there's a saying that writers write the book they want to read, and that is certainly true in this case. But to talk about West with Giraffes, I need to tell you a story about the story. Much of this is in the author's note at the end, but not all of it, and I'm going to let you know the fun, a lot of the fun stuff that came with it that I couldn't put in print. You know, let me just say that I started, let me start in 1999. In 1999, I was doing a project, a nonfiction project for the San Diego Zoo. I happened to live in San Diego, and I fell into this wonderful project with them. And it was about the visionary director of the 60s. Now, that was great. I was excited about it. I was still doing, I wasn't a novelist yet. And so I was enjoying doing something for such an amazing place. And in essence, I was in the library, the San Diego Zoo's library. And I noticed, I'm one of those very curious people. If I was a cat, I'd already be dead. I noticed the scrapbooks. There were scrapbooks over to the left, and they were like crumbling, you know, the kind of scrapbooks we'd have when we were in elementary school, you know, this sort of thing. But they were very old, and I decided to pull them out very gently and look at them. And I got to the 1930s, and it was interesting. Oh, my goodness. You know, because the zoo has been there since 1916. So I think they must have done it started a few years later. There used to be something called, and y'all probably remember this, some of y'all do. There used to be something called a news clipping service. So if you got your name in the paper, you got yourself a clipping. They would clip it for you in a paper anywhere, and they would, you know, send it to you. Now that's, you know, it's a very different world. But back then, if you got your name in the paper, you got yourself a clipping. Now, so what I did was I got to the 1930s, and I was flipping through it, and I noticed that there were 30 of the same story. Well, actually, it was not the same story. It was a different one, but they were all from all across the country. And so I couldn't resist. I started reading them. And I found that it was about how they got their first giraffes in 1938. And in essence, as you already know, most of you have already read it, as you already know, they lived through a hurricane. Well, that, you know, it surely got my interest right there. And by the way, the hurricane that hit, that was before they had names for hurricanes, you know. And this was called, this had a name because it was so bad. It was called the Long Island Express, and it was the worst one before Hurricane Sandy in 2012. That's how long it was. And there were people, as you read when you first, you know, in the first opening of the book, there were, you know, 700 people. I mean, entire houses. They didn't have any, you know, it didn't have any warnings back then. So entire houses were going out to sea, you know. And so it was just amazing, you know, when I started reading about all this information. And so I kind of felt like, you know, this is a marvelous story. So I started looking around for a diary by the head keeper who pulled this feat off. And, you know, I found out real quickly that zookeepers are not the kind of guys who write in diaries, you know? So who knows, you know? So I wasn't a novelist yet, so I couldn't do anything with it. Let's just then, at this moment, I had to let it go. So at this moment, I'm going to fast forward us to 2012. And I finally had my first novel published. I call my friends at the San Diego Zoo, and they're still the same people because nobody leaves those jobs. They just love it so much there. And it's the CEO was one of the guys that I wrote that first book for, and I was telling him about the novel, and he said, well, it's funny that you should call because we were just talking about you. How would you like to come back and write the history of the San Diego Zoo for our centennial in 2016? Well, as you might imagine, I couldn't say yes fast enough for obvious reasons. But the major reason was I was now a novelist. And I started thinking, I want to revisit that giraffe story and see what I could do with it. So I ended up going back and forth a lot. I was already living in Texas. And back in Texas, of course, you can hear the Texas accent. Yeah. And interestingly enough, by the way, I was gone in Chicago for 20 years, and I had lost about half of it. And in the moment that I went back over the Red River, totally back. So it's back. I know. But anyway, so I said yes. And I started going back and forth from Texas to San Diego quite a bit to do that, to write that book. And I recall while I was doing it, I would write about the history of the San Diego Zoo. And by the way, it is a beautiful book. I don't know if you'd be interested or not, but it's 4-color, 2 volumes, 11 by 11 coffee table book in a slipcase. They don't do anything, really low way. So in essence, I decided that I would write won't we pop up the whiteboard? And you just did it, okay. I wrote during the day, and then at night, I started creating this whiteboard just to see if I could write a novel. Now, as you can see, writers are nuts. I mean, look at that. That was my brain with this story. And what I would do is I would create different. I think red was in red, and Woody was in, I think, black, Woody was in blue, and then the green was the old man, and who, by the way, is a real guy. But I couldn't find enough information about him, so I created a name for him, Riley Jones. His real name was Charlie Smith, but again, I didn't have the full story, so I realized I was going to have to do an amazing amount of the news clippings themselves, which, by the way, are real. The ones that are in the book, those are real. I just took a literary license, changing a little bit here, a little bit there, but they are real. They're a major thing. So in essence, what we did was I decided whether I could create this or not, and whether I could create the story. And, like for instance, I noticed that a big old fear of dying ? I bet you probably can read that one. And, I had to worry about that. I had to worry about that because Woody, for instance, his parents died. And we were talking about the death, the Dust Bowl. I mean, people died all the time during that time. And so, again, we have, if you notice, I would create things like, I'd start here. Now that I think about it, I probably should have done it left to right instead of right to left. But what I did was I started over here, and, it would have been better to have gone from New York to San Diego, but instead I did New York over here. And I realized I was trying to decide, I let the geography of each state help me decide what adventure they might have during that time. Now, it's funny, if you remember the postcard there's a postcard. One of them is a postcard. There's a telegram and a postcard. They're all real, like I said. But the postcard was from Riley Jones, Charlie Smith. It was real. And he was saying that everything was fine. You know, no big deal. We're just doing great. Well, you know that wasn't true. There are giraffes in the back of a pickup, you know. And it wasn't true. And I laughed because he was not going to tell her or worry her, you know, who, by the way, Belle Benchley was a marvelous person on her own. She was a female zoo director at the time, and she was pretty much, if you got to the end, you essentially know that we actually do finally meet her. But she was the impetus for the entire thing, and I'll get back to her in a minute. But so anyway, so I let the geography of the areas help me. By the way, I went to Virginia last September, a month ago, and I went to Warrentown. It was a community read again, and I actually got to see the tunnel. You know, it was an hour. It was only an hour away. I didn't realize. You know, I live in Texas. You know, so I was just like, I thought it was way on out there. Nope, it's an hour away. So the librarian, the head librarian, she drove me up there, and I was able to drive through the tunnel that I'd only seen pictures of. It was marvelous. It's just great. If you recall the wonderful tunnel, Mary's Tunnel. Anyway, so. In essence, every time you had to have the giraffes almost go off the side. You know, if you were going to have the mountains, you know, they were going to wobble. So that was going to be easy. That adventure was easy. But then, of course, I had to create all these adventures along the way. Each state had its own adventure, if you notice. And you know, I have a. If you want to pop the next slide, if you would. Now that is the rig. That is an actual picture, and it's on my website, and it's the actual picture of the rig that was on a newspaper clipping of one of those newspaper clippings. And I've been asked, you know, and like this character here with the cauliflower ears on the right, he essentially, did away with him because I wanted Woody to be driving it. So ultimately, we know what happens to, you know, this guy. He ditches everybody. It ditches it all. Ditches the giraffes because the giraffes don't like him. But anyway, and this right here is Charlie Smith, the hunched guy with the fedora. That's how I got the fedora. And you know, this was just so much fun, as you might imagine, for a writer. So this is Riley Jones / Charlie Smith right there. Now, and you see the giraffes, and you see both of them if you look to the left, to the right. And I've been asked who those other people are. I have no idea. And I'm guessing that they were models. You know, maybe somebody, you know, whoever was taking the picture said, we got to have somebody, you know, feeding the giraffes. You know, and there's a woman standing by, and this is my guess, you know. And so essentially, we had to have a woman, and notice she has high heels on. I love that. But anyway, so we have this wonderful picture. And yeah. So that's that marvelous thing. You want to go to the next one? Now, this place is, I had this, it's amazing. In Texas, there's so much stuff in Texas. I mean, it's a crazy place. It's just bad and good, but this one was good. This is something called Long Neck Manor, and it's only about an hour away from me. It's in Fredericksburg, Texas, if you know anything about Texas. And I got invited there about 3 years ago, right when it first opened up in about 2021, when he read West with Giraffes. And the owner, and the owner, who's the Houston, he was the former director of the Houston Zoo. And he decided to do this for his, you know, retirement, crazy man that he is. And so he has rhinos and he has giraffes, and now he has a sloth. And I've met them all. It's fascinating. Anyway, so this was hilarious because he had the idea. This marketing guy that he is. I was just awed. I was like, oh, I'm back around giraffes. It's been years since I was around them, and he said, why don't you have him read the book? I said, great idea. So that's what I did. And of course, you'll see this on my website too, if you want to. Okay, next slide. Now, I don't know if you know this, but they've been translated into. It's now 17 languages, and this one is French. And interestingly enough, they're using the same cover as the Vietnam one, which was about a year before that. And I said, Vietnam, they just did this, and that you are aware. And he said, oh yeah, we're connected to the same publishing house. Okay, so it's French, I guess French. And anyway, point is, they put it out again. And you want to go to the next one? And this is the German one. Some of these are just absolutely gorgeous. I like mine, but oh my goodness, And how about the next one? Now this one is simplified. I think this is the simplified Chinese. So there's two of them. It's complicated or complex. I think it's complicated. Complex is Taiwanese, and they're very separate. They're trying to be very separate from China. But this one is, I think it's one or the other. I can't remember which. But anyway, it was just beautiful. So I decided, I kind of needed to just show it to you. Okay, next one. Oh, this is my next novel, and a few of you have read this. And I just wanted to make sure that y'all knew about it because you might enjoy it. Mockingbird Summer, and it's called that because To Kill a Mockingbird is an actual physical book in it. It's set in 1964, and it's set in a small town that's racially divided, and it's a physical book. To Kill a Mockingbird is used as a physical book between these two girls, black and white. And I said it in 64, right when the Civil Rights Act happened. So anyway, you might enjoy it. Okay, next one. Okay, someone designed this and put it on Facebook, and it's just gorgeous. This is a quote from Woody. No, it's from Red. Red said that to Woody, and I thought you would enjoy that a lot. Okay, that's we can leave that up. I'm going to go finish it. Okay, the thing about it is, when I decided to write this book, I realized I wanted to. I had been a travel writer, so as I think you may have said, but I'd been a travel writer, so I knew that a road trip would be a lot of fun, as well as also be packed with adventures and also crazy stuff. As anybody who's ever done a road trip is going to tell you, this is what happens, especially a long one. And not even in 1938. So now we even have at least we have interstates. And I also wanted to have real people as well as fictional people. So we obviously had Hitler. Hitler's very real, was very real. And Belle Benchley, of course, is very real. And she, of course, was the impetus for the entire thing. And if you don't know about her, you should Google that woman. I mean, she's amazing. She was the first female zoo director ever. And I think, I think one of the had the old man explain to Woody that she swears like a sailor and charms the Zoogaloots, all the other directors, and pretty much loves all the keepers, and they all love her. So she was perfect for what she did, and especially for her time. How groundbreaking is that? Okay, so if I did that, I wanted to have real people, but I also wanted to have, obviously had fictional people, and I knew that each one of them I had to be very, I wanted to know I wanted to be as realistic as possible. So I did a whole lot of research, just a lot, as you might imagine, a whole lot of research. And I'm not the kind, I'm a little too ADHD to do it stay in research. I pretty much have to write, but not this. Oh my goodness, this was just remarkable. Some of the stories. I've got to tell you one of them. You'd appreciate this. You all remember Katharine Hepburn? All right. So she was, I think Connecticut or Delaware, which where her family was from, and she was visiting them during the Long Island Express when the hurricane hit, and there's a picture of her, the one I stumbled upon, a picture of her, and I'm sure it was a photo op, but she showed, she was young, and she was in this bathtub out on the beach, this bathtub that she said she rode the hurricane out in, And it may or may not be true, but it didn't matter. It's a good story, right? Anyway, so at that point, I did this amazing amount of research. It was just wonderful. And that was just the hurricane, much less the rest of everything that was going on when I was starting to create all these other things. And, I already knew about things like flash floods because I, grew up in Texas. So even though flash floods were not where I grew up, it was out in the Panhandle. I wanted to make, and it was the Dust Bowl, so I made Woody, for instance, a Panhandle boy, because again, the voices are in my head. So I could do Oklahoma, but I didn't wanna. So essentially, let's do Panhandle. So I made him Panhandle, and I had a flood there, essentially, as you've read, and I wanted to have red. I wanted red to be questionable most of the way. And for instance, I wanted it to be, if we were going to, well, let's just back up. I wanted to know I wanted to create what it was really like to be alive in 1938. And that meant rich and poor, black and white, male, female. And females couldn't even drive. They weren't supposed to drive on the highways, by themselves. And so, of course, she did all the above, didn't she? But I wanted her to ultimately, as you know, she pretty much saved them all, but at great sacrifice, to what she had wanted to do for herself, and at the flash flood. But, I also had to create things to happen in Arizona. I was actually asked one time, and pardon me if this is one of y'all's questions, but I was asked whether I actually drove that entire route, and I didn't the first half, but I have from Chicago to San Diego. I did that several times, and that informed a lot of what happened in New Mexico and Arizona, as you might imagine, and then obviously in San Diego. Because I knew exactly where I was going to go, and I knew exactly what was going to happen. And for instance, the bridge in Yuma, that's and all the information thereof there. That's still there. The old bridge that they went across, but it's the road went around it, but they saved the bridge, which is pretty cool too, if you recall that part. And forgive me if y'all haven't read it yet. Some of the few that haven't read it. And I really feel that that I wanted to create what it was like, and I'm hoping that y'all felt like that you were there. And I wanted it to create a feeling that that it was like a movie. And again, pardon me if somebody's going to ask this, but it's been optioned for a movie. We'll never know. Who knows whether it's going to take 3 years or not. But it's very visual, as y'all seen. And I have to say that I remember, I don't know, I mentioned this in the author's note, but about the time that I decided to write this, I read I heard a TED Talk, and I hope y'all know what that is. And this man, it was a nature writer, and he said, storytelling matters. Imagination has become an ecological force. And so at that point, I decided it felt like it was marching orders or something, because it was right about the time I was actually trying to write this thing. And I felt like that I should try to create my imagination just to see if it could change anything for giraffes. Now, also, I don't know if you've heard about this, but I can only hope you have. But if you haven't, there's something called the sixth extinction going on. And this has been going on for quite a while. I think it was a book out about a decade or two ago about it, and before that, of course, it was already happening. And what is happening is that icons, these icons of animals, like the panda, and the giraffe, and the elephants, and the rhinos, they are dying, and they're becoming extinct. Now, this is happening because of poaching and encroaching. The world population is, booming, so essentially we're encroaching into their wild areas. And that's a big thing, a big situation. So I felt like I wanted to try to do that. I wanted to try to do something for that situation. So I guess in a way, and I hope y'all felt like I have, but I feel like in a way that this is kind of where my story about the story ends. And I think I recall there was one reader. I've heard so much from so many readers, and one reader said that how did I write a coming of age story, a social commentary, a love story, and what was the last one? Anyway, how did I do that all in one? And I said, I just had a lot of fun. That's exactly how much I did that. And I think I also didn't know whether I was ever going to write anything again. So I was just going to pack it in, So essentially, the wonderful thing about that is that this really is where the story ends, where my story about the story ends. And I hope that if you have read it, or if you're about to read it, that you will feel like one reader wrote me and said, I was laughing and I was crying. I was sad to see it end, but my heart was full. Okay, thank you very much. And I think there's some questions. Oh, I must tell you something. You may already know this, but I must tell you something. And I want to thank you because it hit 1 million this summer. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm shocked, but also in awe. And thank y'all.
Thank you, Lynda. And I do have some questions that people gave us back on the cards, and I can read. One you did answer. So if anybody has cards, or I can walk with the microphone. The first was, do you think there will be a movie about the book?
Yeah. Yeah, and who knows? These things take years. But, and I wouldn't be surprised. For instance, my first one, the one that made it into a French film, by the way, it was, I was happy about that, but then I read down below, and it was going to be starring Catherine Deneuve. Oh. And okay. Thank you, But anyway, so it was really quite wonderful. But this one was, it will, but it takes years. And so I can only hope we're all still around.
What inspired you to use a Stutz car in the book?
A what?
Stutz car in the book. Stutz, am I saying it wrong?
Stutz?
Stutz?
I don't know. Is it a Studebaker? Is that what they're called? That's called. I didn't know that. I thought I knew everything. Well, it had to be something that was old. And I'm still thinking about Stutz. Okay, I had it. It's funny. I'm trying to think back, to Studebaker. I'm pretty sure that it was because I was because of that. I also have a Packard in it. Is it a Packard that's the Stutz? No, I don't know. Point is, yes, it's a Packard. Well, anyway, I think I had do I have a Studebaker in my other novel? I mean, okay, I'm confused now. But anyway, Packard. So essentially, I decided it had to be one that wasn't around anymore, So, and I thought it'd be a lot more fun if it wasn't around anymore. And it would also create the more feeling of it being 1938.
What are your thoughts about the San Diego Zoo then and now?
Oh, that in 1938?
Well, then and now.
Then and now? Because it's been a while since I've even been there. Sad but true. I always loved that place. It's been, I guess, 2022 since I've been there. Well, then, I wrote the history, didn't I? So I guess I should have an answer. What I really liked about writing that history was not only just the fact that there was a female director, and I'd already heard about her, of course. She's famous there in San Diego. She's still famous. I actually heard from. I didn't even know she had a granddaughter. Gosh, I can't imagine how old that person is, but I heard from her. I think the same thing. I heard from it was a great-granddaughter. Okay, but I also heard from Charlie Smith, the Raleigh Jones guy. I heard, after it came out, and it was, it was everywhere, that the Charlie Smith, I didn't know he had any offspring. I didn't use his real name because I didn't know, not to mention the fact that it's fiction, half of it, but I didn't know if there was, it sounded like he just, died with no offspring. And suddenly, I'm hearing from the granddaughter, and I loved it. And I was, hold my breath. Oh, okay, did you like it? And she did. She was really happy, and that's a wonderful thing, especially even if I had to put in another name on it. But in essence, back to the actual question, what I love, the visionary. I must tell you this part. This is fun. What I really love about the difference, the visionary director that I wrote the biography about, in the '60s, he took an idea from Germany, Hagenbeck, Germany zoo, and got rid of all the wire, no cages, except for the monkeys. Monkeys can do anything. They had to keep those up. And they installed moats. So there's an image in my head. I'm sure I got it from creating the history, where the giraffe, and it was a small area. And the giraffes were big in a small area, and it's an image of the giraffe going over, and kind of looking at it, that moat, and they were all holding their breath. They were watching, the designers. And he said, yeah, I'm not doing that, And this went on back. In essence, everything but the monkeys, seriously. They were all, so what I would have hated back then was all the cages. Also, they have understood now that you don't have one animal in one cage. They always have at least two. And if you'll notice, that they'll do that in the newer zoos, and of course, back it up, the moat thing, it's everywhere now. I'm sure you've noticed if you've ever gone to a zoo anywhere on the East, anywhere anymore, they've all adopted the moats in a wonderful way, and they've also adopted the idea of always having at least two, if not more. For the fact, for mental health. Otherwise, you'd have them, they were worried, again, I have all this information in my head, from all these years ago, but they were worried about the polar bears that would pace, and they didn't understand why they were pacing, and suddenly they realized they were bored, just bored, This was back in the 50s, and they realized that they just needed to get a bigger space for them, or do something else for them, so now they have something called enrichment, which is a fancy word for saying let them have fun. So they have balls, they do things like this, they just constantly doing things like this. There's an actual, at the San Diego Zoo anyway, there's an enrichment director. That's all they do. Can you imagine how much fun that would be? All they do all day is think about what they can do to make the animals have fun. Anyway, so that's the hating and the loving of the now and the then. I hope that answered the question.
Well, another part of that question on the San Diego Zoo, which you touched on a bit, is do they still have open areas with many species of animals?
Thank you for bringing that up. Somebody must have been there. They don't do that in the San Diego Zoo because it's only 100 acres, okay? And that visionary director, he did something else that was pretty amazing, and this is another reason why we wrote a book about him, was that it started out as being, he actually created, he bought, and the zoo bought about 800 acres, or I guess more than that, out in Escondido, which is about 40 miles from San Diego. And it's at that point, it was just pretty much barely anything out there. And this was again in the 60s. And part of the book was just about how he wanted to breed out there. So, because you can't really take from the wild anymore. And that had been going on since the 60s. In fact, since 50s, really. You can't, so you needed to breed in order to have more animals and to show. And what's interesting is that this 800 acres, and again, I'm thinking it's more than that now. It must be about 1,000, because essentially what you have is at the zoo, San Diego Zoo, you have especially the monkeys, they're enclosed. They're enclosed, and you walk around. At the Wild Animal Park, it's what it was called in my day, even 3 or 4 years ago. It's now called the Safari Park, I believe, and out in Escondido. You're the ones that are enclosed, and they have this 800-acre area that they have different all kinds of animals, like it's normal, like it would be in the wild. You can't have the elephants out there. They have their own special special area, and it's big. It's pretty big. But they have things, all kinds of things. I actually saw. I can't believe the giraffes are out there, and all kinds of wildebeestes and all this. Like there would be in any like a savanna or something. I actually saw on one of my little. They have a little train, or I think they've got trams now or buses. But I was on a train trip around, and there was a goat having a baby. Okay. And we stopped it for a little while, stopped that train for a little while, and we watched. It was quite interesting. Just popped it on out there, oh my Lord. And and then we just went on our way. And I said, later, I said, how often does that happen? He said, oh, all the time. That's what we're here for. So that's the answer to that, I hope.
Okay. Do you have a favorite book about traveling or animals?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. But there's no way I could answer that. Do you know what the funny thing is that when I'm asked about favorite books, I need to ask, well, which year, or which moment, because I'm always changing my ideas. So it's impossible to answer that. I'm so sorry.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you for coming today. Did you have to do much research on giraffes?
On giraffes?
Yeah, on the giraffes themselves to understand their nature and what they were capable of, what they ate, and how you would integrate what you've learned into the story.
Are you talking about women, or are you talking about giraffes?
Giraffes. Well, you can talk
and
about
by the
both
way-
if you want.
And by the way, isn't that great? I've never seen this. I've seen a lot of stuff. I've never seen a balloon giraffe. That's marvelous. Okay, so you're asking about giraffes, right? Oh my goodness. That was more than half the fun. Yes. What they ate, and I'm surprised someone hasn't asked me about onions. There it is. The giraffes, do giraffes eat onions? I got that straight from the last clip when they got them, tried to get them out of the rig, and they wouldn't come. It's been 12 days, and then also, my gosh, all that time on a boat, and they didn't want to come. And so I got this. It said, Charlie Smith, the Riley Jones character, he said, his quote is, "Onions have power." And essentially, what they did was they offered them onions to come out, to get out of the rig. And they came out for the onions. Now, I've been told, especially by the Fredericksburg, Texas, the long neck manor that you saw the picture of, I've been told that they like carrots better than the onions, but they'll still take an onion if no carrots are around. But yes, I had a marvelous fun with that. There's just so many things that I could tell you about that. But I'm hoping that I have put almost all of it in the novel. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I actually tried to do that with Mockingbird Summer, for instance. I thought, okay, I'll just map it out. And it just wouldn't work. And I think the reason it wasn't is because it wasn't a road trip. I tried it on with Faith Bass only because I just would try to get my mind around it. And I had been thinking about that for years, But I think it was, and I was taking notes and stuff like that. But I don't think I did it. I really tried for Markham Ray, and it just didn't work. And I do think it's because it wasn't a road trip. And it's that travel writer thing in my mind too. I think essentially it just makes so much more sense to do that. And I'm glad you liked that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Oh, yeah. Yes. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, please do. Yeah, that if it helps. I don't know if it's going to help anybody that doesn't want to do a road trip. But. Oh, there's so many different ways. Oh, right. Well, you know that they say she's a writing teacher, if you didn't hear that, and she wanted to show them the whiteboard. I think it's really, and again, there's another joke about, you can't teach how to write, And you either know it or you don't. And I'm not sure that's exactly true because, hey, I've got, you know what my answer is about that? If I were going to give anyone advice, a young, student advice, if they really wanted to write, I would say that they need to read. Because, oh my gosh, I mean, I got, you heard, I have far too many literature degrees. And I thought they were useless. I kept, I would say, oh, they're, useless literature degrees, right? And I was teaching, but it was fine. I'll make a joke. And they're not useless now. They really came in handy because they got a feeling. I learned how to put a book together, especially a piece of fiction. And one time the director asked me, actually asked my husband, how do I have an idea of how to put a book together? And I think the spouse had been around me so long, he just finally said, all those literature degrees, all that reading she did, I'm guessing, But in a way, I don't really know. I don't really know how I do it. And if I think about that a little longer, I would say it's because I have read so much. And that's really the answer that that your students should really need to hear. I used to teach in this little artsy college in downtown Chicago for the decade I was there, and I recall saying one time that if you can't not write, then you should stop. In other words, the double negative. If you have to write, you got to write. But if you can't stop writing, then then you probably know you're going to have to do this, no matter what. If this is your joy. And after that, this student came up to me, and he said, "Thank you for that. I'm dropping the course." Okay.
I have a question back here.
Thank you. I was wondering, how accurate was it to that they closed down San Diego to migrants during the 30s? Did that really happen? Did they?
Oh, you're talking about the Dust Bowl people.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, boy. I read, if you're interested, you should read, what's the name of that? It's part of the acknowledgments in the back. The Worst Hard Times, I think is the name of it. And it's about the Dust Bowl times. And I got a lot of that information from there. And yes, they stopped. They literally, on that bridge that, is in the book, on the bridge, they would stop people. This is real, that they would stop them. And if they had, and like the one remember the goat they had on the side? By the way, that's real. I read about that one. A little goat on the side, so they let them in. But the people behind them, they didn't have anything, and they turned them away. And so when the giraffes came through, they let them in. They didn't even ask because they had, they should have asked, but hey, even out of curiosity, if nothing else. But anyway, but yes, that's essentially is true, and that. It's called The Worst Hard Times, and it is a marvelous book. I think it won a Pulitzer that year, 2012 or 2010 or something. So if you're interested, that's where I got a lot of the information.
Okay, time for a couple more questions. Is that okay, Lynda?
That is fine.
If when the West with Giraffes becomes a movie, will you be permitted to contribute in any way or analyze or say no to anything in the...
Changes?
Yeah.
No. I'm a little worried about that.
No rights, okay.
Interestingly enough, the screenwriter contacted me, and I'm telling tales out of school here, but she contacted me, and my first thing was, and she essentially she's done really well, and I won't go into it, but essentially she's also talked two different companies to push it. Anyway, point is, and they're the ones that option it. The second one is option it again, but she's the one. And the only thing I said to her, I said, please don't change anything. I'm begging you, because it could be so bad. I mean, for instance, if Red and Woody, really got together, that, then like that night, oh my, at first she'd be, I think my screenwriter friend, she actually just said, she was not a friend, but I mean, I wish I'd met her, but I feel like she's my friend. She said, well, he's underage, so she'd be in jail. But I mean, really, who knows? It could be optioned, and then the only way they'll option it is if, Woody and Red do get together. I don't know. So the point is, thank you for reading the book, because who knows?
Do you want me to say? I have a question. How do you write? Do you set aside a certain time every day? And do you get writer's block?
And I, if you're interested, by the way, I have an interview that's on my website under the West with Drafts page. And the interviews, they ask me things like this. And I got to say, I know writers say, a lot of writers say, I spend 4 hours every morning from dawn, until noon or something, Well, that sounds like work. I don't want to work. The whole idea is not to work. It's all fun. So I think it's pretentious. I pretty much think that's not true. I'd be real surprised if it was true. Maybe it is, because, I mean, as you've noticed, I'm an extrovert in an introverted job. And so maybe they're introverted and they just keep pumping. And, these people who, like, I say James Patterson, who pops them out every year. I mean, what the heck? So obviously he has a cottage industry going, He just gets an idea and he gives it to somebody else, which I don't think is writing. I don't know what that is, but essentially the words themselves. In fact, I've had neck surgery because for 30 years I would do this. And I would stare, for the longest time, I would stare to make these words bend to my will, I'd want the exact word, exact. And I would go back and change stuff. And I would constantly, I just hurt my neck doing that. Just everywhere. Okay. So essentially, doing that straightforward thing. But I just think I really do think that would be work. And it's got to be fun. It's got to be joyous. And to me, there's nothing joyous about it if you're made to do something. And it's got to be fun. So for being things like to work on a book, just like I really did try. I've tried to do the whiteboard again and it just doesn't work. It really doesn't just quite work unless it happens to be a road trip. But I just I think it is pretentious on their part to say something like that. And again, it needs to be fun. I can't imagine doing it being driven. It's I'm too old for that.
Okay, so we have 9 participants on Zoom and 2 comments. I will read them real quickly. Thank you. Great background of the story. This was my first author speaker's talk. I enjoyed reading, and our book club discussion of your work helps to bring the story writing to life. And I love the balloon giraffe, too.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Well, we'd love to thank Lynda for being here with us today. A special person and a special book. Two things quickly. I just want to thank and acknowledge Roz and Nancy with Sunrose Books, and Alicia, who did the balloon art, and that's Alicia's Balloon Boutique. She's local in Ocean City and West Avenue. And Lynda will be selling books. Excuse me. And Steve, Trogger, and Martin, thank you very much. We always appreciate your help. They're our technical men. But so we will be selling books. We'll start the line that way when you head up there, and Lynda will be signing, and probably opened a picture.
Yeah.
Okay, just because some people love this. Okay, again, thank you all for coming, and thank you.